Kimberly Crail is a wise woman, herbalist, and educator who came from Wall Street to the weeds. Casey's mission is to teach folks how to heal themselves using whole plants and foods as medicine. You can heal yourself with simple and inexpensive methods, foods, and herbs. And now, here's the host of Weeds of Wisdom, Kimberly Crail.
Hi, this is Kimberly Crail, or also known as Casey the Wise Woman. Welcome to Weeds of Wisdom on this Tuesday, July 22nd. I'm so pleased to be welcoming Dale Allen this evening as my very special guest. Dale has been dear to my heart for many years now. I was honored to have her actually on my show previously, but this is her debut appearance on the Onyx Network. So I'm very excited to have her this evening. So let's just get our song complete. It'll open up our right side of our brains. And as St. Hildegard says, music can transform the world. So this is a Seneca prayer. Please feel free to sing along. Sacred Corn Mother, come to me. Make my way sacred, fill me with beauty. Sacred Corn Mother, come to me. Make my way sacred, fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty. Fill me with beauty, that I may bring others beauty. So our guest tonight is Dale Allen. For 26 years now, she's been sharing healing energy of the sacred feminine through her work In Our Right Minds, which has been widely acclaimed at universities, conferences, corporations, and theaters across the U.S., Canada, from Kuwait to Dubai, the UN Commission on the Status of Women, and the Parliament of the World's Religions. In Our Right Minds is an inspiring keynote performance presentation, an international best-selling book, a course, a musical production, and a film which has been awarded 19 independent film festivals worldwide. Described as having the energy of a Cape Canaveral liftoff, Dale thoroughly engages and inspires her audiences, which range from corporate leaders to teenage girls seeking their place in the world. The Dale Allen podcast ranks in the top 10% globally, and Dale is a veteran of corporate, commercial, and creative communications. Her extensive resume includes voiceover, on-camera, theater, and presentation and live presentation projects. In Our Right Minds is a sweeping journey in short order, judiciously illuminating the history and relevance of the goddess archetype, as well as its connection to our right brain intelligence. In Our Right Minds garners praise for being well-researched, organized, clear, level, balanced, and without blame, and inclusive of all the human family. You can watch this award-winning film, In Our Right Minds, or check out the best-selling book. Oops, sorry about that. And consider a screening event or a book club. Dale will help you set up both of those. Visit In Our Right Minds for your free Our Mother prayer and free mini serpent blessing from Dale. InOurRightMinds.net is where you can reach Dale. So without further ado, let me introduce Dale. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's very good to be here, Casey. So good to be here. Thank you. And I'm delighted to be presenting on the sacred feminine and the power of the words and the vibration all around the sacred feminine and how healing this energy is, which belongs to all of us. So I'm just looking forward to diving right in. There are some words that I shared going way back 26 years ago in the musical production that I had created, a cast of 7 women, different ages, shapes, sizes, and colors. And this actually comes from that. So I'll just launch right in.
Please.
If that works for you.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's very good to be here. Thank you.
Years BCE. Archaeologists find...
Oh. before the cultures of power began, before the written law and the great sky god as creator, the goddess was known. All around the world, evidence is found of the celebration of the mother of all creation. All around the globe are found the remnants of the sacred feminine, the honoring of the cycles of nature and the cycles of woman, the honoring and replenishment of Mother Earth, the gratitude for all she gave forth, the reverence for birthing, for nurturing, for life. A culture not of power and ownership, but of direct relationship to the mother who nourishes all and whose only message for all her creation is live in fullness and joy. Live. The hearts of men and women cry out for her reemergence, for a world wherein the feminine, a part of all men and women, a part of all people, is held sacred, and the masculine is expressed in balance beyond the confines of a culture of power. So that comes from my original musical theater piece. And that was really kind of where the journey started for me in terms of sharing the sacred feminine through the arts, through creativity, as that is the natural way that I teach and where and how I share. So that's kind of my playground. Yeah.
Wow, it's very powerful. And, I think that, this using your voice and using your divine intuition is so beautiful in terms of how you approach this topic. And so tell us how you got started on this goddess journey, if you don't mind.
Great. Thank you. I wrote the play after the energy of the sacred feminine had really come into my psyche and my life. I had devoted myself to learning everything that I could about the goddess. And I studied extensively. I applied all of my academic skills. I read the works of seminal scholars, mostly female, but not all, whose names now appear in the bibliography of my book. So I read the work of archaeologists, anthropologists, cultural historians, and I have an amazing bibliography. Thanks to them, I owe them a debt of gratitude. Male scholars too, psychologists, mythologists, poets. And, the goddess herself spoke to me in my blood and in my bones, in my belly, in my womb. Images of the goddess from the Paleolithic and Neolithic eras, and really all the eras, Chalcolithic and on through, they filled my eyes and my spirit with remembering. And that's how it began for me. I mean, she found me, but I was also at a point in my life where I had chosen a time of stillness. I had chosen a time of void. I had chosen a time to not know, which our culture does not support. Mm-hmm. It doesn't support us in taking time out to sort of be with whatever is inside. It was an uncomfortable time, the way voids are, but that's when she came into my world, in that darkness, in that void, in a kind of a dark night of the soul, really, was when she came in. So that's how it all started. Yeah.
And do you find that you get pushback if you use that term goddess?
Well, what I find really about it is that, as far back, I've been doing this for so long. And so the answer to that question in just for short answer is no. And I'll tell you, I think why. I've always been very sensitive to energy, always my entire life in this realm, the unseen and the seen world. That is just my orientation since I can remember. I was raised Catholic. I was raised also in a progressive family, luckily, which allowed for spunky girls, and it allowed for a voice, and it allowed for humor, and it allowed, to be silly. I was lucky for that. I wasn't told to stop, be quiet, tone it down, as many girls can be. I'm lucky. In the churches that I went to, I loved all the statues. I loved all the imagery. I loved particularly the female images, the female saints and Mary Magdalene. It's Mary Magdalene's feast day today in Catholicism.
Oh,
So yeah, it's her
happy
day.
feast day.
It's her day. Yeah.
Oh,
Mary
wonderful.
Magdalene, the Apostola Apostolorum, the apostle of the apostles. She's the first one to witness Christ after his resurrection. So that's a big deal that she was given that that title.
I've been reading the Gospel of Mary Magdalene. It's quite illuminating.
It's wonderful
Mhm.
that even the church gave her the title Apostola Apostolorum, and there's more and more information coming out about her. It's very, very, very healing.
Mm.
And, yeah, I know for me, when I first heard the word goddess, for me personally, I was uncomfortable with it. I didn't see the need for it, really, is what it was for me. God, as we understand it, is beyond, it's beyond gender. It's everything. It's you, it's me, looks just like you, looks
Right.
just like me.
Right.
And I could use that word to mean all of this, nature and us. But when the word goddess came out, I was like, oh, somehow that word didn't have the same global effect. And I thought, well, why is that? So for me. So
Right.
since I went through the experience of finding goddess kind of uncomfortable, since I was raised in Catholicism, I found that the way that I teach my message is so really compassionate for where people are. And I'm not teaching a religion. It's
Right.
not about a religion for me.
Right.
The sacred feminine belongs to everybody. And it's just a part of us. It's an archetype for me, right?
Mhm.
As well as transcendent, just like God is an archetype as well as transcendent. I mean, these two
Right.
archetypes are archetypes and more, and so
Right.
far beyond.
Right.
But because of that, I've always addressed my audiences in a way that has not given me pushback, actually. I quoted Carol Christ,
Mhm.
PhD, religious.
Why women need the goddess.
Oh, she's, what a resource, what a
Mhm.
blessed resource. And I'm so grateful to those who came before me. But she said, and I quote her in my work, theologians frequently assert that God has no body, no gender, no race, and no age. And most people state that God is neither male nor female. Yet most people become flustered, upset, or even angry when it is suggested that the God they know as Lord and Father might also be God the Mother or Goddess. And in sharing that kind of thing with my audiences in my theatrical productions, in my one-woman show, and in my film, it puts us all in the same kind of experience, because I think many people can relate to that. It's like, yeah, it is uncomfortable, but
Right.
let's sit with it for a while and let's look at it. That's how I've always kind of addressed my audiences. Let's look
Mhm.
at this thing together. What is this thing? Let's
Mm.
talk. Let's find out. I mean, that's how my journey started,
Right.
26 years ago.
Wow. Yes, I often wondered in my own mind. It was like, okay, we have Father God, but what happened to Mother God? It was like this, Agatha Christie mystery. It was like, did somebody take her down, with a, I don't know what happened to her. And it seems to me that, at least in the Catholic traditions, she really sort of imbued that archetype of Mary, the mother of Jesus. And so it's often said that they could not force the people to give her up. And
Right.
so they actually just changed her position in the church. So I find that interesting.
Yes, and the power of images, which is a big part of Catholicism, the imagery, the statues, the stained glass, the image of the mother. Raphael Patai is another one. He says there is in man, which of course he came from a time where the word man was used for people, there is in people, beyond the psychological need for a father symbol, an equally great and possibly even greater need, that of the divine woman, who appears in many forms throughout the world, yet remains basically the same everywhere.
Mm.
It's really looking at this deep psychological tissue you know, she was so stripped away from us, and all people need the sacred feminine. All people need to have this restored because we're missing big parts. Now, if you also happen to be walking around, in a female body, those parts and pieces are really important for us to have, but they're equally important in men, and no matter how you identify, because we are all made of these masculine and feminine energies in an entirely unique blend. But to push down and subjugate and remove and try to erase all that feminine energy, this has been something that has put people in a state of disease and unwellness. We cannot be whole without the sacred feminine. And as in teaching, teaching in this way always brings people a sense of remembering, even if they have to go through layers of, wait a minute, this is dangerous. Wait a minute, this is proscribed. Wait a minute, this is something we shouldn't be, even though those restrictions might be there.
Right.
When the information comes out and the images come out, there is a sense of remembering.
It rings true in that way.
Yes, it certainly does. Or even when people hear words that have been used for the sacred feminine, like the mother of all things, she who dwells within, the mother of songs, wise woman, queen of heaven, her holiness, lady of the high place, the eye of wisdom, the serpent lady, lady of the sycamore, governess of the elements, mother of stars. When you hear these words, even, it just says, wow, those feel right, or that feels familiar somehow deep underneath all of the layers. And then things like, I'll do a quick screen share. This is just a clip from my film. I'll show part of it. But it's important to think about the effect, not to think about, it's just important to experience these images of the sacred feminine, because it has an effect. So here we go. I'll open this one up.
As far back as 70,000 years BCE, archaeologists find evidence of religious rituals to the mother of all things. The Upper Paleolithic era, the Late Stone Age, which spans 35,000 to 9,000 years BCE, left us the many Paleolithic goddesses, like the goddess of Willendorf found in Austria. She's dated circa 30,000 to 25,000 years BCE. She's typical of the goddesses of that era, round and grounded and full, peaceful yet powerful in her presence. She is one with the earth. She is abundant, life-giving, the great mother who has birthed all of creation. Having birthed all, she nurtures that which she loves so dearly. The Neolithic Age, or the New Stone Age, which spans 9,000 to 3,500 years BCE, left us goddesses like this terracotta crowned snake goddess from Crete, circa 6,000 years BCE. Pioneering archaeologist and author Maria Gimbutas gave us the pictorial language of the goddess. The stripes on the crowned snake goddess's appendages are representative of snakes. Her legs and arms wind snake-like around her. The snake was a powerful totem of the goddess. The goddess of Thrace, from the Black Sea region in central Bulgaria, dates circa 4,500 years BCE. Her breasts and sacred yoni triangle are clearly outlined. Her countenance is at ease and smiling. Viewed from the side, it is clear that this goddess is pregnant. She is gestating all of creation, bringing forth life as the earth brings forth her abundance. This is the Nile goddess from early Egypt, circa 3,500 years BCE. Her head is shaped like the head of a bird. In pre-dynastic Egypt, Nekhbet, the vulture goddess, and Wadjet, the cobra goddess, together created the world. The word mother is depicted by the vulture hieroglyph. The vulture is a symbol of the intimate relationship between life and death. One comes from the other. Like snakes, birds are representative of the goddess. She assumes the shape of both, sometimes simultaneously. The serpent goddess, circa 1800 BCE, is made of faience and gold from the temple repositories of the magnificent palace of Knossos, Crete. The goddess venerating Minoan culture was artistic, wealthy, highly sophisticated, and peaceful. The serpent goddess holds a writhing snake in each hand. She is both goddess and priestess. She stands with authority, her unwavering, trance-like gaze piercing and wise.
So I will go ahead and I don't know how to unshare my screen. I apologize for that. Oh, good. Thank you so much. So you see that in doing this kind of work, and that's just a clip of some of the goddesses that I've been presenting for 26 years. And to audiences, I mean, I've presented in churches, synagogues, I've presented at universities, conferences, expos, UN Commission on the Status of Women, all kinds of audiences, but we journey together. So pushback, no, once in a while, very, very, very rarely, someone is coming up to some, resistance inside, and that's okay, but it's rare, actually. I mean, I've had, men and women just be like, wow, thank you for sharing that with me. I mean, that stuff is, that's history, right? That's our shared, that's our foremothers and forefathers. That's how they saw the creator. And of course I take my audiences all the way through. Well, what happened? What happened to the goddess? That's the question that we quest together to find out what happened and how did we end up living in this, like a fish in a fishbowl where we can't see the water that we're swimming in. How did we get to this world that lacks the sacred feminine, that has only one concept of an abstract, God that, is patriarchal in structure? We don't know what it's like to live outside of that. Right. As settler people, as we all are.
Right. Well, one of the things that I often suggest that I think of as a metaphor is, if you look at the yin and the yang, they're not one on top of the other camped out, right? It's not like the yang is camped on top of the yin or vice versa. It's really, they're spinning endlessly side by side in this sort of beautiful dance of dynamic disequilibrium. So, and one cannot really exist without the other. So I think perhaps, people get a little afraid that because, history has essentially excluded the mother aspect of our source creator God, that perhaps, if we, honor the goddess, we're going to be excluding, the male aspects of God in some form or fashion. And I think that's the myth, right? There's nothing to fear there, because we recognize that they're, like I said, the yin and the yang are lovers. They're spinning endlessly, and one would not exist without the other. So
yes,
the way I think about it.
Yes, you are absolutely right. And that beautiful yin yang, which is the totality of all things swimming into one another, and you can't have one without the other. And then of course there's the little circle, kind of almost like an eye, right? Where it's the opposite. I mean, it's all that one totality. And particularly our Western mind, but actually any sort of settler people, anybody that's been severed from the original utilization of the brain and way of attending to the world, that went into more left brain dominance, which happened the world over, needs to come back into a remembrance. But the yin yang symbol is a beautiful way of depicting our natural state. One of the things, that I go into in the piece is that the fact is, most of us haven't been introduced to our shared history before the written word. We just haven't. We our foremothers and our forefathers did know the goddess, but we tend to count our history with the written word. I mean, yes, we can go back to dinosaurs, and we can go back to the timeline on the earth. But in terms of our human story, we settler people tend to count it all from the beginning of more of the written word. That's when we say.
Exactly. Yep. So we're going to be taking a short break in just a second. But when we come back, we're going to find out what happened What happened to Mother God? and we'll hear more from Dale after this break. Thank you.
The UNX Network presents a health and wellness spiritually based brand of hemp-derived CBD products made by Hopewell Farm in Harrogate, Tennessee. We apply our Cathara energy work with all of our plants and products. Our products made in small batches with only 2 ingredients of pure hemp, full spectrum crude oil, and coconut-derived MCT oil. Third-party lab tested for potency and legal THC levels with 6 strengths of 1 ounce oil to choose from. Know what you're buying and get what you pay for from Hopewell Farm. Applied directly to a specific area, Hopewell Farm topical salve in 1 ounce and ½ ounce sizes made with pure hemp crude oil, comfrey extract, and all natural ingredients. Find the Hopewell Farm link and coupon code on the UNX Network website at unxnetwork.com. That's unxnetwork.com. The new book, How to Research a Haunted House by paranormal investigator Margie Kay and professional researcher Violet Wisdom, is now available from UNX Media. This one-of-a-kind book explains how to do research on a house with uncommon methods and resources used by historic home researchers, and how to determine who may be doing the haunting and why. How to Research a Haunted House can be used by homeowners, renters, investors, and it should be in the library of all professional paranormal investigators. Get this unique book at unxmedia.com or amazon.com. That's unxmedia.com or amazon.com.
Welcome back to Weeds of Wisdom on the UNX Network. My special guest tonight is Dale Allen, creator of In Our Right Minds. And so welcome back, Dale. I'm not sure I'm getting a little fuzzy sound. I'm not sure where that's coming from. I don't know.
Well, soon you'll probably hear my voice overriding it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's
Yes?
perfect. Yes,
Okay.
please. So you were going to tell us whatever happened. We know all about Father God, but whatever happened to Mother God?
All right, well, let's kind of break it down a little bit. I love a quote from Merlin Stone that says, "In the beginning, people prayed to the creatress of life. At the very dawn of religion, God was a woman." And I love that quote. You know, our blueprint, our human history, representing 90% of our history, it gives us a foundational model. This is our hunter-gatherer history. 90% of our history, it gives us a foundational model of balance. Viewed the energy behind all things, or the creator, was sensed as being female. In these cultures, and in many ways where they still exist in places where indigenous people today that didn't break that thread, these cultures behave very differently than cultures wherein the creator is male. So even, indigenous cultures around the world today, where there's a sense of the sacred feminine, and our historical cultures, they look very differently. Now, Dr. Eleanor Gaydon, cultural historian, outlined the tenets of our modern culture as follows. So this is wonderful. She says 3 things. Eleanor Gaydon: a male God created the universe. Humans have the right to dominate nature. Man has the right to dominate woman. These are foundational tenets in our cultures as we know them. They're just kind of ingrained. Our natural blueprint is to be in balance of the male and female, of the masculine and feminine energies. And our brothers and sisters around the world who live in indigenous cultures today, many know a different reality than we do. It's a very different way of being in the world and of being in the body. Most of these cultures are matriarchal. Matriarchal cultures are not a reverse mirror image. They're not a mirror image of patriarchy with women in power over men. There are no such cultures. Those cultures don't exist, and they have never existed. Matriarchal cultures are egalitarian, and egalitarianism is our natural blueprint. Peggy Reeves Sandé, UPenn, she's an anthropologist, and she studied over 150 tribal cultures around the world. Significant research. She found that origin myths play a huge role in the concepts of power in a culture. So whatever the origin myth is, informs on a deep tissue level how the culture views power. What does the creator look like? It's important to ask, who is the creator and what are the attributes of the creator? She describes cultures that hold the feminine as sacred are different. She finds that there's a clear connection between goddess veneration and the following things. So where the goddess is venerated, where the creator is seen as female, birthing, there's the honoring of nature, the participation of women in sacral roles, a positive view of nature, connection to the land, and female power in society. Not power over, but female power in society. So, again, we can't even conceive of living outside of gender hierarchy because it's like we're fish swimming in water. It's hard for us to really imagine. So when I talk about the sacred feminine, I do come through the lens of the archetypes to keep us out of the weeds of religion. And I also certainly encourage and honor all religions. And I love to see the awakening of people practicing all kinds of faiths around the world and just allowing space for the sacred feminine as she breathes and moves through, these religions. It begins to affect a change and it begins to bring balance. Right. But what happened is that we have this as our natural blueprint, but something happened, and there's a lot of reasons why the goddess why that was severed. But a big part of it is that in about 1750 BCE, there was essentially a new way that we began as human beings operating in the world. And that was with the powerful emergence of alphabetic literacy. I do really respect the work of Dr. Leonard Shlain, who gives a really wonderful culture by culture coverage of what the effect of the written word had on cultures. So, and of course, there are other things going on too, as people begin to, settle into larger agricultural areas, and you have this confluence of things going on with the power of the written word. To read and to write, we use primarily the left hemisphere of the brain. Right. Left hemisphere of the brain is that masculine hunter-killer hemisphere.
And I just have that book, Leonard Schlain's book, and that right-left hemisphere diagram up on the screen for us.
Yeah. So it's wonderful. And of course I quote that, and I go into that in my book as well, in Our Right Minds. And I do quote Leonard Shlain because it's a powerful piece to consider. And the reason it's extra powerful is because we need to today really get sharp real quick on how our brains work. Mm-hmm. So if we look at it, we went into a real powerful shift at about 1750 BCE with the advent of alphabetic literacy, and culture by culture by culture, we see that the feminine begins to be subjugated and pushed down as the new male sky gods emerge in these new written myths that replace the organic birthing creatress myths, right? The stories of creation. And now you have these new male sky gods, and they eject life out of their foreheads rather than birthing through the birth canal, or, decree, they fight great serpents and sea snakes. I mean, all of it. And the sea snake and the serpent are all images of the goddess, but the new sky gods eliminate her. They have to conquer her in order to take over the universe. So this creates these new sky gods that emerge, new written histories. And because, as Peggy Reeves Sandé showed us, the image that a culture holds of the creator or the energy behind all things, when it becomes an abstract sky god based on the written word, moving us into left brain dominance, these cultures are very different. And these are the cultures that we live in. So a male god created the universe. Humans have the right to dominate nature. Man has the right to dominate woman, become these foundational tenets.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That dualism of not only light versus dark, but light is better than dark, and sort of a value judgment that crept in, as opposed to seeing it as a holographic, because the right brain really sees it more as a holographic in interconnected system, as opposed to just this dualistic, the perception is quite different.
Oh, it's completely different. I love the work of Dr. Ian McGilchrist, who I also quote heavily in my book. And it's a wonderful way of understanding how our brains work. So he talks about how there are very distinct, and as do all neuroscientists, there are two hemispheres of the brain, asymmetrical hemispheres of the brain, and they're specialized to different tasks. So while both sides of our brain are working on all tasks at all times, both sides are working at all tasks at all times, we attend to the world through one hemisphere or the other. So that is a very important distinction to make. Essentially, the way we are designed, and McGilchrist's work is very powerful on this, the way we are designed is that the right hemisphere is the big picture hemisphere. It's the big picture hemisphere. Life itself is a big picture. It's all the things that are happening around us. It's embodied. It's how we're perceiving the world around us, in deep relation to the other. Very, very empathetic. Sees itself as part of the whole, which is true. Then the left hemisphere of the brain is kind of, if you will, where the filing system is. It's where we categorize, break things down into parts. We need the brilliance of the left hemisphere of the brain. It's where we file. What is this? How does it work? How does it relate to other things? It is the filing system that allows us to have that important skill, that hunter-killer skill. If we take the example of a bird, as McGilchrist does, a bird flies down and now it's looking for a worm for its meal. And that right eye, that left hemisphere, is focusing to find the worm. It's got to break it down into parts. I'm looking specifically for a worm right now, or a twig or whatever. But the right hemisphere is still taking in all of the world around that bird, so that a red-tailed hawk doesn't come and swoop down and eat the bird for lunch while it's trying to catch a worm. So we're supposed to be always in that right hemispheric, the whole picture, in empathetic connection to other mode, with sort of a quick check of the filing cabinet. You see, a quick check of the filing cabinet. It's the perfect design. What's happened to us settler people, because we need to learn more from our indigenous brothers and sisters for whom this thread hasn't broken so badly.
Right.
What's happened to us is that we've gotten rather stuck in more of a left brain way of attending to the world, where everything is broken down into pieces and parts, and it's a self-referencing. It lives in a world of its own. The left hemisphere is not in deep relation to the other. The left hemisphere is strangely cut off from the world around. It's living in a virtual world.
Interesting.
So we started to have, and I was talking about this in about 2010, 11, 12, and it was getting so exciting. And even going back before then, so exciting that we were beginning to use the right hemisphere more and more in everyday life. And I did podcasts for Yale. They were creating curriculums that were really about the right hemispheric way of attending to the world, that holistic worldview. And then basically these technologies started to become ubiquitous in the world,
Right.
and more screen time, even though there's a lot of imagery and screen time, unfortunately, this harkens more to the virtual world, break it down apart, systems, processes, apps, and it's kind of an addiction to it, and it's keeping us more in that left hemispheric virtual self-referencing world. I mean, listen, social media we know causes depression. It's got a serious impact on especially young people, where it's not relating to the other because we're together and we're talking and I see you and I can experience you as a whole person. I need my right hemisphere to experience you because you're fluid and ever changing. The right hemisphere is open to that. But instead, if we become nothing but, avatars and pictures and swipes and, this is my profile and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. People get upset all the time with texts or emails. And here's the reason why, because you can't really, like you said, you can't really get the sense of the context. So did Dale steal that? Those 4 words can mean 4 different things. Did Dale steal that? Did Dale steal that? Did Dale steal that? Or did Dale steal that? But if you don't hear my accent or see my facial expression, and apparently psychologists are showing that most people will take the most negative interpretation, and then they get their hackles up because they're going to assume that you're accusing them of something. And so I found that very interesting as well.
Yes, and that's right, because in the texting, it's also the written word. It's also in the phone. Things are coming up very, very quickly. People would take a time, and even though it was the written word, to write a letter. How will I compose this sentence? What feelings do I want to convey? What metaphors will I evoke? How will I tell my lover how I love them? There's poetry in that beautiful written letter that a person would take the time to write. Even though it was the written word, there was time taken. Now it's just, did Frank steal that? I don't know.
I don't know. And one other thing I don't know if you're aware of, because I just learned this recently, because I was telling Susan Weed, my teacher, about these things, and I said, well, the male and female brains are the same, and she says, yes, they look exactly the same, but they don't have the same neuron firing patterns. So this is quite interesting. Apparently in the male brain, each lobe fires front to back within the same lobe. So if it's a right brain neuron, its pattern, it'll stay in the right brain. If it's a left brain pattern, it'll stay in the left brain. Women actually have these interconnecting neural patterns that go between the lobes. So isn't it interesting how perhaps that accounts for why it's sort of invisible, right? Because if you're only in your left brain, you're never going to see, these things that are in the holographic field, so to speak. And so, particularly after so many generations we haven't exercised that muscle in terms of using our right brain.
Yes, I think too that it might be, this kind of technology and communicating, this way has a similar effect on everybody, which is causing people to be more into their left hemisphere. And indeed, there have been noted differences between the way women attend to the world versus the way men attend to the world. And in some ways, and I'd really have to look at it and study it some more to see if that's becoming more level, because I think that even women are becoming more stuck in the left hemisphere.
Yes.
We want to really evoke all of us humans, no matter how identified, back into that, returning always to that big picture, empathetic, right brain perspective.
Right.
In studying even rods and cones in the eye, there's been a difference, or there was more of a noted difference between men and women in terms of rods and cones, because these particular types of cells have different functions. So the rods are more focused, like, again, hunting. I've got to target something. I've got to break it into parts. I have to target it. I have to find it. And the cones are more, I'm looking at the whole big picture. I'm looking at everything going on. If one is hunting, if one is gathering and nurturing, One
Right.
has to be aware of everything that's going on. One has the children. One is picking berries. One is very, very connected to all things going on. But thank heaven that the species was designed, right, so that in general, the men did the hunting and brought home the
Right.
meat for the
Yeah.
iron for the whole, all the people to survive. It was a
Right.
beautiful balance. We were designed to be in
Yes.
balance.
Completely. And
Yeah.
I'm just rereading the Clan of the Cave Bear series after 30 years. And wow, what an eye opener, because it deals with prehistory, the Ice Age. And what I'm realizing, it was really my first exposure to herbal medicine and so many other concepts. So I highly recommend that series of books by Jane Aul, or Owl, however you say her name. She was quite good. And then the other thing that struck me was, the song that I sang is the Seneca Prayer. And the Seneca Nation and the Great Iroquois Confederacy, the Peaceful Nations, they're actually the ones that our Bill of Rights is somewhat comes from, although theirs says all are created equal, meaning men, women, plants, animals, rocks, stones, sky, river, everything. Um, and and so the way they organized their communities was that there was a chief, and he ran the men, and in terms of all the men's activities, the hunting, the building, the whatever the men were fishing, whatever the men were doing, and then they had the council of grandmothers, and the grandmothers, they had the final say on anything. So the chief, he got authorization. So, just because they were the ones to have that holographic view of what's really best for our tribe. And so I thought that was a very interesting way of organizing the clan.
Yes, with always the return. That's such the beauty of it, isn't it? Yes, the men working with the men and the boys in order to do the oh so critical tasks,
Right.
involved in keeping the whole tribe alive,
Right.
and honoring that. I mean, there's an honoring of the masculine as well. But when it comes down to what direction will this tribe go in, then we're going to look at the whole big picture. We're going to look at the animals. We're going to look at the small children now. We're going to look at the next 7 generations. We're going to look for what is the healthiest thing for our mother and ourselves. It's a beautiful way of being. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I love that this is our blueprint, and I love that there's just kind of more talk about how to, learn about these cultures, how to learn about native cultures directly from native cultures, and also looking into our own foremothers and forefathers, just the collective history that we have on this planet. And our design, 90% of our history reflects this perfect balance of the left and right hemisphere and the masculine and feminine. And in a mere short period of time, in just 10% of our history, we've brought ourselves to this brink right now.
Right.
Right. Right.
What did you
Mhm.
say? 70,000 BC until 1750 BCE. It was the goddess. And then so basically in about 3,000, almost 4,000 years is only, that's pretty short, really, if you look
Yes.
at the span of time.
And also, it's also what's important to remember too is that these are just the evidence. So these are just things that we found.
Right.
These are just things that still remain, but our history is much longer than that. I mean, Homo sapiens sapiens began 150,000 years ago.
Right.
That's the whole thing you have to look at.
Right.
But it is interesting too, because with our modern technologies, we're also starting to find, like, for example, there are pyramids in Poland, right? We're going to start to find more that's going to be revealed out of our earth. And we might find more artifacts that, bring us more of this story of our natural blueprint, left hemisphere, right hemisphere, balance, masculine, feminine. So that part is exciting to me.
I think it is very exciting too, with all the new technology. They're finding all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I think, to your point earlier, I think it's also a lot of times when I'll teach my classes, I tell people, that I'm just helping you remember, this ancient wisdom is embedded in your DNA. It's in your, it's in your cells. And, a lot of it is to get to that, I call it the step 0, where you're just be still and listen, in serenity medicine. And really, that's where I get my most powerful downloads, not necessarily from books are great too, and to interact with wonderful beings like yourself. And so I appreciate you so much, Dale, and the work that you're doing. We've got about 5 minutes left. And so let's take this wherever you want to take it. Let's talk a little, I think for the women that are interested in pursuing this work, before we get into, I know you have some courses and classes, but I want to make an appeal just very quickly to the audience that we're going to have on this show, because I've had a book that I birthed the idea for in 2012, and it's called The Beauty Way, and it's how to look gorgeous naturally without, killing yourself with all kinds of toxic chemicals. And so what I'm asking is that I'm asking for all women to please contribute. If you're interested in participating, there's a questionnaire. It's about 3 pages long. It'll go head to toe. And obviously, your contributions will be credited. So please email me at kcrail@proton.me with the subject line Beauty Way. And so that you can be heard and your health beauty regimen can be included in that book.
Nice. Very nice. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. So, yeah, for me, I love using, you talked a moment ago, you said, it's the quiet and the stillness, and how right brain is that, right? Meditation, stillness, art, poetry, walks in nature, quieting and calming that left brain repetitive, dialogue, monologue that we have going all the time,
Right.
Calming that down, communing with nature, communing with one another, petting the cat, and being out of that left hemispheric loop, and using the gifts and the tools of research and putting the parts and pieces together with the brilliance that comes from using both sides of our brain. It's both. But I think that based on how quickly things are moving, and luckily research is coming out and continues to come out about, the effects of, again, say something like social media on teenagers, and how, people have notifications for how much screen time they have. I think we're going to get kind of good at this. I'm going to hold this vision where, similar to the way most people, not everybody, because not everybody's, privileged enough to have the information to know to brush their teeth every day, or people who shampoo every day or have a chance to get clean, or these regular sort of patterns that many people employ every single day. I believe that we can move into a time and place where we know that every single day, built into that day, will be a real saturation into right brain experience, and really kind of looking at it that way. Of course it's deeply spiritual, but just saying, hey, for my health and well-being, I unplugged, I got out of my screens,
Right.
I got out of my left hemisphere, and I spent some time in my right hemisphere. But people realizing that the world you live in, the world that you essentially create, will be a very different world if you're creating it out of your left hemisphere versus your right hemisphere. You will live in an entirely different world depending on how it is you're attending to the world. And how easy is that? Slip across the corpus callosum and you could be in a different world, as opposed to just in that virtual world that you're projecting onto the world around you. It's not even really connected to the world around you. It's just a projection of your own sort of self-referencing left hemisphere. So I just think the data will continue to come out. So it's an exciting time, and I want to continue to feel excited, and I always will. I'll say one strange thing, but I will say it out loud. It all turns out really well in the end. This planet does ascend and things go very well, and I've come back to witness it, but it does turn out well.
Well, we'll definitely have to have some more conversation on that score. But tell the audience what you have coming up, Dale. Any events, things that you're real excited about? I know you have the book, the film, the course. Tell us what you have coming up and where what you want to work on.
Thank you so much. Well, I definitely recommend, please do visit inourrightminds.net, because the film screening events are really fun. So the film itself is it's 50 minutes long, and it just packs such a powerful, powerful message in a short period of time, as does the book. So on my website, whenever there are film screening events, I list them there. Some of them are, live, so people can host these things, bring people together and build community out of that. So that's exciting. There are lots of resources there. I am indeed working on another piece right now that will be a kind of an immersive piece. I'm working with a group of women. One of them, well, it's a group of us, but from the Parliament of the World's Religions, we created the first ever women's village at the Parliament of the World's Religions. And now we have a global women's village and a conference coming up in 2026. You'll be able to find information about that as well.
So inourrightminds.net is the best place. And so unfortunately we're out of time, Dale, but we'll have to have you back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was really fun. Thank you. Thank you, Casey. Thank you. It was great. Thanks a lot.
All right. Thanks, everyone.